Hi, I'm Alicia Tyree. I'm a recruitment product consultant at LinkedIn, and my session is about how to use LinkedIn to its fullest potential. So basically, I come from LinkedIn. I'm a product consultant there, and what I do on a day-to-day basis is I work with recruiters and I teach them kind of how to find talent on LinkedIn. So what we're going to do today is sort of switch that around and talk about some of the things that you can be doing with your own LinkedIn profile to make you more successful as a professional. And hopefully find you that job if you're looking for one. We'll talk a little bit about kind of the strategy for building a network. You might want to have 500 plus connections. You might want to keep it more kind of targeted and more close to you, but that's really going to be around your ultimate goals with LinkedIn. Have you ever used LinkedIn to search for an opportunity? All right, cool. And how many of you participate in groups or follow companies? All right, still a good number. You guys are going to be experts. So if at any point in this presentation I'm like reiterating everything you already know, just let me know. And then the last piece, how many of you update your status regularly? All right. Okay, so one thing that we will talk about then is updating your status, how you can do it, who it's going to go out to when you update it, and then we'll talk about things like LinkedIn Today and some of the other tools that you have available to really keep yourself updated and let kind of give you content to update your profile with. Okay, so LinkedIn, we are the world's largest online professional network. I'm sure you've all heard that. Right now we have 150 plus million members, and as you can see, the majority of people are based in North America, but we're actually really actively growing out that network in the international base as well. So Monica, if you want to hit the space button, I have this software. We are currently supporting 17 languages. If you're a bilingual professional or bilingual intern, you can definitely create your profile in multiple languages, and that's something that we have built into the tool to make it very simple for you to do so. And then, if you're ever curious about LinkedIn's mission, it's to connect the world's professionals to make them more successful and productive. So why are people on LinkedIn? I can't tell you the number of times I've had a session with someone who says to me, I don't know why I would be on LinkedIn, I'm not looking for a job. A lot of people think that it's a resume repository, and they're there. It exists literally just to put your resume on, you leave it, you never use it again. So the real reason that LinkedIn exists is to allow people to manage their professional identity, and that's its first and most important function. So what we're going to talk about again today is really creating that identity and owning it, and being able to use this network in addition to some of the others to really push that out and allow you to be more successful. In addition to that, of course, you can build and maintain your professional network here. And then accessing valuable knowledge and insights. So this is where things like other people's updates, following companies, groups, and LinkedIn Today come in. And then creating new opportunities. So a little bit about building your profile. A lot of you have profiles, or you all have profiles, and you seem to be pretty engaged already. But we're just going to cover really quickly some of the very simple steps that you'll take to making sure that your profile is 100% complete. So then the first thing that we always say to people is add a photo, definitely add a photo, and also update your headline. I meet a lot of people who will say that they'll have a LinkedIn profile, but since it's professional, they don't want to add a photo. In case any of you don't have one, a nice little fact to know is that people are viewed 7 times more often on LinkedIn if you do have a photo. So if you want to catch attention of recruiters, I talk to recruiters who are more likely to look at people's profiles if they have photos. So I always recommend that, take that as your first step. So here we have Shannon. She works at LinkedIn. She's our VP of Corporate Communications, and she's using the headline in the most traditional way. So you'll see a lot of people who use that headline space to add their job title in. And you can definitely do that, especially if you're working more in like a conservative industry. We see a lot of people taking that method. What I like to do, and what a lot of people at LinkedIn have taken kind of as a best practice, is using that headline space to talk more to who they are as a professional. So connect and talent with opportunity at a massive scale. And that's one of LinkedIn's mantras. And Steve Cadigan, who is one of the major big ups at LinkedIn, he's using that as his headline. It really actually does speak to what he does on a day-to-day basis. He's in charge of talent acquisition for us. I kind of like the first thing that people to see about me to speak more about the summary. We talked about the headline, and I think that the headline and the summary are really important pieces of the profile. A lot of people go straight to experience. The headline and summary are the pieces where you're going to be able to speak to who you are in your own words. It won't be job titles, it won't be companies that you've worked for. This is really your place to shine. The way that we recommend that you lay out your summary, or I recommend, is you start with, number one, what do you do right now? So you use the first section. It can be a sentence, it can be a paragraph, depends on kind of how comfortable you feel about talking about it. Talk about what you do currently. So here, this is another consultant at LinkedIn, one of my coworkers that I stole a profile from, or I stole a summary from, when consulting with LinkedIn's corporate clients. So basically he's talking right now about what his current job is. In the second section, he talks about the value he provides. So he's on the team, we know what he does on a day-to-day basis, but why is he important and where does he contribute? And then in the third, something personal. So a lot of times people will say, this is LinkedIn, I don't want it to be personal, I want it to be fully professional, why would I add something? So again, it's gonna depend on how you use all of your different social networks, but keep in mind that this is your brand on the internet, this is your professional brand. So I always recommend to people that you think of something that's personal about you, tell a story that's gonna make people interested, and then use that sort of across networks. Of course, if it's going to be personal, you still want it to be appropriate for a professional setting. But you can say something like, San Francisco resident that loves media, blogs, and technology. That's definitely something that people who are looking at your profiles as recruiters are going to be interested in, because now more and more recruiters are hiring for personality as well as talent. So it's something that you want to really speak to, make yourself engaging in it in a different way. And then the last piece is adding specialties. So we'll talk about some of the matching functionalities that we have on LinkedIn on the back end. But the way that recruiters it's not a secret, the way that recruiters use LinkedIn is that they search people by keyword. So you're going to want to use this section to just add in some of the keywords that relate to what you're doing. And really keep that in mind as you're building out the rest of your profile as well. If you know that you want a job in social media marketing, list that where it's relevant, because that's really going to bring you up in those searches as well. Overused buzzwords. We actually pulled keywords from a number of profiles on LinkedIn that were the most popular profiles. So things like innovative, motivated. All of this stuff you can definitely use on your profile, but I always like to point it out. This is what everybody's saying about themselves. And dynamic, proven track record, those are the sorts of words that mean very little. So definitely be careful about how often you use them, and try to use the language in your profile to be a little bit more succinct and a little bit more kind of targeted to what you do as a professional. What have you accomplished? You're going to want to add your work history, definitely add your education. And we also have a number of additional sections, so I'm sure you guys have all updated these two areas. I always recommend that you kind of give a little bit of an overview of what you did in each of your positions. Again, that's going to make you more relevant when it comes to search. You can do the same with education. But if you've already filled out those sections and you want to find more to do, we have project sections, we have sections about volunteer causes. There's a lot that you can do. There's actually, it's just about the summary. It says add sections, and so depending on what your particular specialties are, there are a bunch of additional sections that you can add in and kind of bulk up that profile. Yeah, recommendations. At LinkedIn, the company line is your profile is not 100% complete until you have 3 recommendations. And I always use, so Brendan is another coworker at LinkedIn. And so I always use his recommendations as an example because he gets them from a bunch of different types of people. So as an intern, you may want to look to managers that you work with, other people who have been at the same level with you. You might want to ask professors, you might want to ask people that you went to college with. And then as you continue through your career, if you're working with clients, ask clients for recommendations, ask people you're managing for recommendations, because those people are, because of the nature of your relationship with them, they're going to be speaking to different skills that you have. 5 advanced tips to improving your profile after you've completed all of those major pieces. Number 1, update your location for better matching. So how many of you in the settings have added a right-hand side of your homepage, there's a little module that says jobs you may be interested in, and it gives you matches for jobs based on the information you put in. So that matches based on keyword and title and a bunch of other factors, but it won't give you location-based matches unless you add in that zip code. So I always say, especially if you're a job seeker, definitely add in that zip code because it's going to get you the most relevant matches. It's also going to help you be found by recruiters, by the way. List websites and customize the hyperlinks. So how many of you have websites listed on your profile? Right? So you'll know that you can have 3. How many of you have customized the hyperlinks to say? So the example here, we have a company website, LinkedIn jobs, and then this is an additional blog post that LinkedIn has put up. What you'll see when you're typing in each of those websites is it gives you a drop down. And a lot of times you'll look on profiles, and if you kind of search the network, you might find 10 today that have company website, company website, company website. They're all different links, but they all say the same thing. What you can do when you go into editing and company websites is instead of just selecting from that drop down, you can hit other. And once you select other, it allows you to type in what the hyperlink is going to say. So obviously, if someone's coming to your profile, you want them to go out to your blog, you want them to go see your online portfolio. So let them know where they're going, and they're going to be more likely to click through. Create a vanity URL. So this little public profile link, how many of you remember seeing that? Okay. As soon as you build a profile, that's something that's automatically generated for you, and it has tons of numbers and letters, and it looks, frankly, pretty messy. You can go in and edit that to say anything that you want. I think that you can do that on Facebook now. It's sort of like creating your own URL for LinkedIn. So mine says, linkedin.com/in/Alicia Tyree. And I put that on my business cards, I put it on my resume, and it looks a whole lot less messy, and it's also easier for people to remember. Skills. Has anyone added, not the keyword skills, but has anyone added those linked skills that they're like linked in little blue boxes? Okay, so the skills section actually ties back. This is a newer product that we have, and it ties back to what we call a skills section. So the skills section is where you can actually go to the skills section and you can search for particular skills. So let's say you were interested in learning more about iPhone development. You can go into the skills section and look that stuff up and find relevant groups. You can find other people who work in that field. You can find a ton of information about the skills. And the way that it ties back to your LinkedIn profile is you can add a skills section where you basically get a bunch of links. You can type in, I am an event photographer. You can list any skills that you have, and those will link back to the skills section. So if anyone's on your profile and they don't understand what Drupal is, if you're a Drupal expert, they can click through and find out more about what that might mean. And then the last piece, we talked about it for a second earlier, adding new sections. Again, you'll have that plus new section. You can add things like links to your portfolio, you can add applications, you can add information about what causes you're interested in, and it's just going to make you look, or it's going to let people understand who you are more comprehensively than just adding in your experience. Okay, connecting. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen this people you may know piece. Once you start connecting, it's going to be based on the companies you've worked with. It's going to be based on your connections, who they're connected with. Usually generate they think are going to be, you're going to be most likely to know. So that's a good place if you ever want to just add circle of your network. You can go in and we give you recommendations for people that you most likely already know. How many of you, just by show of hands, have imported your address book? Great. So if you go into in the top navigation bar where it says connections, you'll see an add connections piece, and you can actually import all of their email addresses, and it'll pull all of those emails that basically anyone that you've ever had an email conversation with. It allows you to select which of those you want to connect with on the network. So a lot of you seem to have a ton of connections as it is, but if you're wanting to bulk up that connection, if you want to sort of reconnect with people that you've worked with in the past, you can definitely do it. And this is the simplest way to generate those people instead of having to search for them and find them in some other way. And then a little bit about a strategy for connecting. And again, this is going to depend on what your strategy is with LinkedIn as a whole. what are you trying to get out of it? So that's something to sort of think about on your own and decide. But I always connect with people I've worked with, people I would recommend other people to work with. I'm really careful about, if you worked with that guy who got fired for drinking on the job, you might not want to connect with him. Your network really does reflect on who you are. So I always recommend or connect with people that I would recommend. I also tend to connect, and this is going to depend on how you feel about it. Some people don't connect at all with anyone that they don't know. I connect with people that I feel I have a strong professional synergy with. So Marty, for example, we connected once we already knew each other, but she's the kind of person that I feel is going to be someone that I'm going to want to know, or at least I'm going to want to follow the updates that she has. She works in the same space, we know a lot of the same people, and I feel like seeing her updates is going to be really interesting, and I could have connected with her 8 months ago before we ever met. And then last but not least, connect with people that you think can help you in the future. And that kind of ties into this little bottom piece that says where there's an existing relationship, you're going to have to do a little bit of legwork. Don't think just because you've connected with the hiring manager at your dream company, you're going to get a job out of it. You really have to add some value, be someone that they think is interesting, update your status with things that are going to be valuable for them. And when you connect, send a personal message. Tell them why you're connecting. And don't say, because someday I want to, get a job at your company. You might want to be a little bit more specific about why they're interesting to you as a professional. Yep, use introductions. You can connect with people using introductions. So again, if you do want to connect with that hiring manager at your favorite company in the whole world, you can ask for introductions through your network. And you get 5 per month. So a couple of different ways that you might want to update your status. If you're interning right now, and you're really excited about some of the things that your amazing company is doing, you might want to update about some of those things that are happening. Whether it's the office pizza party or a great speaker that came in, that's going to show how engaged you are with the company that you're already working with. Definitely share news that's relevant in your industry. So this is where LinkedIn Today comes in. We have a news aggregator that's built into LinkedIn. You may have seen it. You can follow industries, and it's going to show you the top shared news in all of those industries. We have share buttons across 300,000 websites. So you're really getting news from across the internet. It's a really simple way to stay updated on industry news. So I definitely recommend that you go in. I go in every morning. That's like the first thing I do. I go to LinkedIn Today. Granted, I work there, so I have to be on LinkedIn all the time. But I go to LinkedIn Today and I read 5 articles that I think are going to be interesting, and I share one. So as a best practice, it makes me feel like it's getting me set sort of top of mind with all of those other professionals that I've connected with, because I see that I'm active and that I'm sharing. Groups. How many of you are members of groups right now? I feel like I asked that yet. Okay, so a good number of you. Just a little bit about where you can find groups if you're interested in being more engaged with that. We talked about the skills section, so that's one place. You can search groups. I use semiconductor manufacturing groups as an example, just to show you that there are groups in anything you're interested in. And you can join up to 50 at a time, so definitely go in, search some things, join some groups that you think are going to be interesting. You also have groups you may like. So again, we kind of generate based on behavior, based on groups that your connections are part of, what we think you might be interested in. And that'll show up in 2 different places. One is on the easiest place, on the right-hand side of your homepage. Follow companies. So following companies is like my favorite thing in the whole world, especially if you are interested in eventually working for a particular company, or if you're currently job seeking. So once you follow a company, you're going to see all of their updates. You get to see, in many cases, what their employees are saying about them. A lot of them have career pages where they're listing out their benefits, they're talking about their culture, they have their employees giving testimonials. You'll also see any updates that they're sharing on their blogs, if they're integrating them. You'll see any jobs that they're posting on LinkedIn. So it's going to keep you sort of up to date on what that company's doing. And if a job pops up and it's interesting to you, it's going to come straight into your newsfeed. For those of you who are currently seeking opportunities, you're going to want to do some proactive searching as well. So this is something that Marty actually shared on her Twitter the other day, and I was really excited about it. You can search for jobs on LinkedIn.com proper. That's definitely something that you can do. We also have this new section that's specifically for students and recent may be interested. We talked about it earlier. This is actually generated for me based on the keywords that were on my profile. Pretty relevant. I work in social media. So those will show up again on the right-hand side of your homepage, and they'll always be new ones. They update. I'm not sure exactly how often, but they update pretty often. And then apply. We have apply with LinkedIn. What this did, is kind of embarrassing a photo of myself. But what this did was I hit apply, and it actually pulls all the information from my profile. A lot of companies are taking it this way. Some are still going to have you submit your resume proper, the traditional resume, but a lot are taking this apply with LinkedIn, where it pulls all of your information for you, and you just submit it that way. And then if you guys are interested in learning anything else, you can learn more, and then we have an entire learning center that teaches you kind of how to use all of these additional products. Here, if you come down, there's actually a vertical learning center. I wish you could see it's kind of blurry, where you can watch videos that are geared towards particular people. So there's one for students, there's one for job seekers, a bunch of different types of things. So I would recommend just checking out that section. There's a ton of stuff that I didn't cover today. It's kind of rapid fire, but if you are interested in learning more, there's that section available for you. Yeah, question?
I tried using the resume builder very recently. The resumes and how it's very different from the standard way one presents a resume. They give you every format from like an executive to if you're a graphic designer, you're looking to present it in like a designer's fashion. But the one thing I noticed is that when I tried to transfer my information from my LinkedIn account to the resume builder, it would position it in a way that was like almost ridiculous. Like
really?
It would format it like a paragraph if it were like listed stuff. So that bothered me, and then I noticed if I put spacers in between the text, I ended up getting it in the correct format. But
right.
Is there any tips with the resume builder so that it
That's something that I would actually, if you were interested in learning more about how that integration works, that'll more be on their team. Yeah, so if you wanted to reach out to them and just say, like, I tried to do this and it came out really odd, how do I fix it, how do I make it easier?
It was so interesting. You don't often think that there's so many different formats you could do. With this, it really showed me that there's a lot of potential to design your resume in a way so that it doesn't matter what's on a resume, you can format it in a way to go to a particular industry.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I think especially as someone who comes sort of from the design industry, I'm sure all of you saw that article that came out, I think it was sometime last year on Mashable about like the top 7 amazing resumes, and they're all, created by graphic designers. Really cool stuff if you're using a resume, if you're having to apply with a resume. As far as some of the other things you can do if you're also using LinkedIn as a creative professional, a lot of people say LinkedIn looks really conservative. How do I sort of add my personality to this? Outside of just the content that you can put on, we talked about applications, so you can add in not only links to your professional portfolio, but you can add applications that show your portfolio.
Yeah, like Behance said I know for a while that they had an application, and the speaker was here today. The application was pretty good. I've used it recently, and you can literally show parts of your portfolio on your LinkedIn resume. It's very visual. The only thing is there any way you can actually customize the look of your LinkedIn itself now?
I think there's little you can do to customize on the interface side, but if you want, I'll give you my card and you can email me specific questions, and I'll like talk to the product team about it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
If you find something you like on LinkedIn and you're sort of in the middle, like, should I just email the company or should I apply through LinkedIn? Like, is there any type of relationship that you guys have with companies that would make it a better,
I would say it does. It depends company to company. Some of them we have really strong relationships with, and we're working really hard to make sure that they're successful as recruiters so that they trust our network and want to come to us first for applications. What I would say is that you'll see that it differs on the network. Some of them choose not to take apply with LinkedIn, and they actually route you back to their ATS. So with those, you kind of have no option. But one thing that you will see, and this is most recruiters now are doing it on the network, if they're posting a job on LinkedIn, you'll see next to that job posting, it'll say posted by XYZ recruiter. And we actually tell them, like I tell recruiters every day, you should integrate the job posting with your LinkedIn profile so that job seekers can see who it is who's posting and get sort of a better idea of who you are as a person and want to build a relationship with you, because it's for their benefit as well. But because that's there, we also tell them, people can now email you or they can get introductions to you. And I always recommend to job seekers, definitely do it. They might not get back to you. They might be so busy that they just don't do anything with it, but at least you're reaching out, and I think it does, with the right recruiter, it gives you a competitive advantage.
What was your question? So mine is to do with the amount of content you share, the job description on your LinkedIn page versus how much you share maybe on your traditional resume, and if you should kind of summarize it or shorten it, or if it's okay to just share all the content.
I mean, the way that I traditionally have done it, with your resume, there's always been that rule of sometimes your resume can be 2 pages, but usually keep it to 1 page, because otherwise the recruiter's going to get it and be like, I'm not going to read this. The nice thing about LinkedIn is that sometimes recruiters actually want, and sometimes people, not even just recruiters, but people that you're connecting with, people that you want to build relationships with, are going to be interested in different pieces of your background. And because it's a dynamic page, you can list in all of that stuff. You can really create an identity that's gonna speak to who you are as a whole. And then people who aren't interested in reading the whole thing can't fault you for putting it up because it's more than a page, So I always say, don't overshare, but share everything that's relevant and everything that you think sort of speaks to who you are as a professional, and don't really hold back.
So I guess to piggyback off of that then, my second question was to do with linking your Twitter account with your LinkedIn, and unless you're in social media or online marketing, if that's recommended or if that can be almost like spam.
So you're talking to someone in kind of in that social space, so I always say definitely do it, unless you're one of those people who has a Twitter account that's like all complaining about, how much you hate your old boss or something, like something like that, which you never should do anyway. I say link your Twitter account, but then again, once you do that, you really have to be conscientious of what you're putting on the internet. You should be every day. You should always have been, but especially once you link it in, try to add some more pieces that are relevant to your sort of professional career. But you can also, I see a lot of people who are successful in balancing personal and professional on that account as well. It'll depend a little bit on the industry that you're in. So if you're trying to get a job in finance, it might be a little bit harder. But generally, if you're in a creative field or if you're in kind of the tech space, people are interested in finding you that way as well, and they'll probably look for you. They're going to Google you and find out everything that there is. So you might as well link it and then kind of use it to your advantage.
So if you obviously, I think you should always keep your Twitter pretty professional. But let's say you want to, post something that's rather like a silly article, something from Jezebel.com or whatever. You don't want it on your LinkedIn profile. So if you don't put the hashtag for that, it won't go on your LinkedIn profile. And when you go to Twitter, that's where you can see all those options. So that's a good kind of happy medium, maybe.
As soon as you incorporate your Twitter with your LinkedIn account, a box will come up and it'll give you those options. It used to be that you could have everything that you posted on Twitter come into your LinkedIn account. That's not the case anymore. But you do have the option to either share to Twitter from LinkedIn, or, as Marty mentioned, share from Twitter to LinkedIn. And it'll only happen if you put in that hashtag LIIN. So yeah, I use that all the time. Sometimes I'm posting articles that are about, the Instagram acquisition, and I work in a big tech company, so that's relevant to people that are in my company. So I share it on both networks. And sometimes I'm posting about this really cool cat video that I saw, and I don't share that with my LinkedIn account. Any other questions?
If I know some people are in groups, but if you want to, actually, there's 2 more questions. One, how many groups is too many to be in? And also, if you kind of want to be in groups, but you don't really know where to start, like what is a good starting point? Like how can you find stuff that you're interested in?
That's a great question. I should have said when we were talking about groups that you have a limit, so you can join 50 groups. You'll also see, you might see someone who seems to have like a massive list that goes over 50. You can join 50 groups, and then a lot of groups, let's say it's the Google alum group has Google alum San Francisco, Google alum New York, and those are subgroups. You can join 50 groups time to do that. But join groups that are in your area of expertise, in your area of interest. You can join groups that are related to companies that you like. You can join, the NYC Interns group, which I've joined, and definitely just, kind of make it a mix of things that you already are an expert in, so you can go there and be the expert in that group, and things that you're interested in learning more about, so you can go there and learn more. Does that answer your question?
I wanted to add something to that. I noticed when I first got on LinkedIn, there was a group called like Silicon Valley Ventures, and I was very interested while I was in high school about getting into that kind of market. And when I entered college and I saw this, I was like, joining this group doesn't mean I have to be necessarily part of the group, but I'm going to see content for the newest technology, and to me it's like an invaluable resource. It's better than like going on the internet and researching the technology, because not all that is shared, but LinkedIn has these resources that are phenomenal in that sense. And these groups are exactly.
Yeah, and the thing about groups is that you can get digests, so you can get them monthly, you can get them weekly, you can get them daily, you can get them every time somebody posts something to a group, which is overkill for my inbox at least. But it's definitely a way, as you mentioned, to be part of a community, even if you're not currently working there, if you're not currently an expert in it. I came from, for a little while, a recruiting background, so I'm still in groups that relate to, JavaScript developers, like PHP developers, because I work with that network of recruiters now. So I want to be updated on what it is that's kind of the news in that industry, so that I can speak sort of intelligently to it without ever having to be a developer. So that's fun. So any other questions? Was there anything else that, LinkedIn has so many products. Is there anything else that you guys have been seeing or kind of wondering about that I didn't cover?
You're in product development, right?
I'm not in development, no. I'm basically a liaison between the product team and the clients.
So what's like a good group that relates to your profession?
That relates to my profession? Well, I'm so glad you asked. So we actually have a LinkedIn products group, and we have a LinkedIn customers group as well. So you can join those and you get kind of fun insights into the new products that we have coming out. I specifically work on the hiring side, so we have a new product coming out called, it's not going to, unless you want to be a recruiter or not, it's going to be super interesting, but it's called Talent Pipeline. And so there are a ton of updates about the rollouts. If you're interested in like the process of rolling out products and that sort of thing, join that one.
When you go to add something in your LinkedIn profile, like I feel like at one point there was, you couldn't add it unless, or you couldn't add it officially unless you had an email address that had that name in it. But yeah, but the last two things that I've added, or things that I've put on recently, it hasn't asked me to do that. I was just wondering if that was something you guys got rid of, or whether.
Yeah, no, I don't think that wasn't a feature when, or a requirement, I guess, when I started. So I haven't seen that in a while. But my guess is that they probably took it out because there's so many companies. I mean, you talk about a startup or a company that's working out of their Google Mail. It probably eventually became a problem because not everybody has a domain name. So that's what I'm guessing was why they changed it.
What probably stayed was the fact that if you're a company looking to hire on LinkedIn, you still need to put an official website, and if you're one of the main employees, you have to use official email as well.
Well, and so now you can have as many. You can, by the way, have a bunch of email addresses associated with your account, and I work with even recruiters sometimes who log into our other products and don't have their company emails as their primary email, and it's kind of a choice of yours. There are some sort of like, if you want to edit a company page, you'll have to have the company domain name and that sort of thing. But as far as like your LinkedIn.com account, you might be a freelancer and you might not have one. So kind of, at least if that was a thing, we got rid of it, and I think it's a good thing.
If you're looking for a job or an internship, should you put in your status that you're looking, or is that a turnoff for recruiters if you say that? Like, what is your opinion on whether you should make that like clear, and how blunt or essentially should you be about it?
Well, that's a great question. I think that will depend sort of on how you deal with it once you've made either decision. So obviously, if you're working in a full-time job and you're looking for a new job, you might not want to say that you're looking unless your boss is okay with it. I think I've seen a lot of people on LinkedIn, and also in conjunction with Twitter and Facebook and all of their other presences, launch these I want a job campaigns and have them be really successful and get the job that they want. So I always say, yeah, if you're looking for a job, let the world know. Update your status. Reach out to people that you've connected with and say, remember that time that I was an awesome intern for you? I'm looking for a job now. Do you know of anything that's coming up? And maybe be a little more specific. Maybe know that there's an opportunity that you're perfect for before you reach out. You want to make it easy for people to help you. But yeah, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, definitely let people know that you're looking. I see people who also don't do that, but it almost sort of puts the onus on you to do all the work then. These other people aren't going to know to help you.
What's the question then? At the bottom of your page, the option of what you're looking for, whether it's to reconnect or actually searching for opportunities, how important is that for you?
Depends on who you ask. So that's funny. I have recruiters asking me that exact same question on the other end because a lot of their sort of search fields that they have line up with the fields that you have in your profiles. That's one that they can search, but often they'll ask me, should I be looking for people who are looking for opportunities right now? And I always say, and I'm not the only one in my position, other people disagree with me on this, but I say I would try it, but I wouldn't assume that it's going to be correct because you can look at my profile. I think it says I'm looking for a career opportunity. I'm not. It's so far down that people forget about it when I don't update it. So definitely, best practice for everything. Always be updated with every piece of your profile. But I would say, yeah, being more proactive about letting people know that you want a job is going to be more of a successful tactic.
So if you're working currently and you are searching for opportunities, like you said, you don't want to broadcast it, your employer doesn't know, obviously.
Yeah.
So leaving the looking for opportunities off won't necessarily hurt you.
No, it won't. No, I don't think it'll hurt you. Obviously, you're not going to be able to use your LinkedIn profile in the same way that somebody who's, unemployed is going to be doing it. But no, that's not. You'll definitely still find a job if you don't update that.
So if you recently graduated or if you're in between jobs or something like that, I have a couple of friends back on LinkedIn that will write like social media professional or networking professional. Would you rather see, or do you think a recruiter would rather see something like that, which I might consider like stereotype or like one of those kind of superficial things, or would you rather see the last thing that I did come up with somebody?
Well, and that's your preference, really. I like to update mine, and we're telling, recruiters on their end the same thing, so they're not going to be like, why did she say that she's like, a social media ninja if that wasn't her job title? I think people get that space is a little bit more flexible, and if they are, if they're finding you based on keywords, then they're also getting your title into other places, so I don't think there's too much danger in using that space to kind of be a little bit more creative, and it also makes you stand out a little bit, I think, personally. All right, thanks guys.